So we're going to talk about stressing less because obviously stress is a part of our everyday lives, but finding balance in ninth grade is kind of tricky. Oh, there we go. Okay, so I'm Kelly Miller. I wanted to share just a little bit about my background. I am certified in applied positive psychology. I'm credentialed under the International Coaching Federation as an ACC. I am also licensed to deliver a resilience program called the Bounce Back Better program. I'm the author of Jane's Worry Elephant, which is a self-help guide for children with anxiety. And I started A Brighter Purpose, my business, to help families become more resilient after the loss of my own father. He was a very large influence in my life, and I knew that his legacy of helping children should be carried on. And so in my own way, I'm carrying that on with positive psychology. What is positive psychology? A lot of people probably have that question. Psychology obviously is the study of behavior. Positive psychology is about what is right with you as opposed to what is wrong with you. Positive psychology didn't really begin its study until around 1998 when Martin Seligman began the study of learned optimism. So if you think of our psychological well-being on this continuum, we're at neutral. We don't feel so well, we go see a practitioner and they bring us back to neutral. Well, positive psychology actually is kind of a preventative medicine, if you will. And although it's not medicine per se in the way I practice it, but it is all about preventing anything from keeping us down in too far of a low. So it works with what's building us up, what makes us strong, and what keeps us going. But what is stress? It's any type of change that causes physical, emotional, or psychological strain. And as we all know, adolescence is fraught with stress. But adversity or the stress isn't really the problem. The problem is that we don't come equipped with tools to be able to handle that amount of stress. And adolescents, if you think of kids carrying a big stick over their shoulders and they have buckets of stress that are all on that stick and they're carrying them all on their shoulders, we can all agree that there are a lot of stress buckets where adolescents put their stress. Some is academic, some is social, some is body image. We have family stress, we have financial stress, we have traumatic events that occur all over the spectrum of kids. We have significant life changes, and we also have a brain that is not fully developed yet. And all of this stress tends to get kids into a state of overwhelm. And when we get into a state of overwhelm, there's not a lot of forward movement because we don't know which direction to go. I want to talk a little bit about the amygdala hijack. When we are under stress, like teenagers are, we are more prone to the amygdala hijack. So if you think of your brain as having two different systems that need to work together, the amygdala and its surrounding areas in the brain are the part of our brain that's making us have that fight or flight response. It's the part of our brain that has emotional triggers. It's the part of our brain that alerts us to danger in our environment. Well, when our amygdala actually triggers the awareness of fear or danger, our prefrontal cortex, that beautiful piece of our brain that makes us uniquely human, stops working properly. So this is when you see emotional outbursts. This is when you see anger. This is when you see, a lot of the emotional stuff that comes with being a teenager. And knowing that they're prone to this kind of hijack is really important, because when we're speaking to our teens, we have to make sure that we're speaking to the emotional part of their brain. And when I say emotional versus rational, they obviously have to work together because our brain is not just one piece working at one time, but more of our energy will go to the emotional brain when we're triggered in an amygdala hijack. And in an adolescent brain, it's highly reactive because this part of the brain is developing more rapidly than the rational part of our brain. The rational part of our brain isn't fully developed until around the age of 25. So if we can speak to the emotional brain from a parent's perspective, it's easier to help slow down those triggers. It helps to slow down all of that fear that's being triggered within their brain. When we trigger the rational brain or the neocortex to start working, we can help calm and soothe the situation so that we can get into a more solution-focused area of thought. And so remember, when you're talking to your kids, there's this metaphor that's called the rider and the elephant, which a psychologist named Jonathan Haidt from the University of Virginia created. The emotional brain is the elephant. The rational brain is the rider. And if you can imagine an elephant kind of running forward and stampeding in a time of worry or stress, it's obviously a lot harder to slow down. But if we can think of our rational brain, even as small as a child, if it's calm, if it's peaceful, we can speak to that elephant and calm that irrational or emotional part of our brain down. But I also want to explain what anxiety is, because a lot of people get confused. People think anxiety, oh, there must be something wrong. We actually all experience anxiety. It's a feeling of worry. It's a feeling of nervousness or unease that typically is about an imminent event or something with an uncertain outcome in the future. We call this too many thoughts of the future. And imagine what a teenager is thinking about their future. They're constantly thinking about what might come next. Anxiety disorders, on the other hand, are when this worry is compiled, when it's strong enough to disrupt our daily activities. It can manifest in a lot of different ways within our physical body to actually make our stomachs upset, give us headaches, have lots of different physical ailments that come along with anxiety. But there are many ways to reduce the strength of the anxiety. And I wanted to quickly teach you one that is in my book, Jane's Worry Elephant, that is called havening. Havening was created by two different doctors. One was an internal medicine doctor and the other was a dentist. They were brothers. And they noticed their patients coming in being really nervous and anxious and not really wanting to be where they were. So what they found out was that this one activity called havening can actually help people to trigger the prefrontal cortex to start working and to start calming the body by cross-wiring their lobes of their brain. So I'll teach you one part of this havening. You crisscross your hands on your shoulders and you slowly move down to your elbows, lift and move down in only one direction. I use this every time I go to the dentist because I am not a person that really enjoys the dentist at all. And it's the only thing that keeps me peaceful and calm before I go in there. So encouraging your kids to learn these types of behaviors before they might be in a place that might trigger some anxiety is actually a really healthy part of their toolkit. I also want to talk a little bit about scarf theory, because anxiety is the thoughts of the future, but what triggers us, it needs to be defined so that we can notice it, name it, and navigate it. Emotional triggers come in all varieties. The scarf theory gives us some buckets to be able to put those triggers in so that we can speak around triggers to other people and triggers to ourselves. Scarf threats trigger the amygdala hijack in kids and adults. So adults, if you're going to work and you're noticing somebody that has a status trigger, you actually can be aware of your own behavior and how that might trigger another person. So SCARF stands for status, certainty, autonomy, relatedness, and fairness. Status is where you are in relation to others. We can all agree teenagers are worried about how other people are doing in relation to themselves. Certainty is about being able to predict the future. None of us has a crystal ball, yet we value certainty in what's going to happen in our day-to-day life. Autonomy is providing a sense of control over events. A lot of teenagers feel that they're not able to make their own choices because they're still under the care of their parents. They're under the care of practitioners in education. They're under practitioners from all over the place that are telling them what they should be doing and how to do it. But kids are still valuing autonomy in their own choice. Relatedness, feeling a sense of safety with others. Is this person a friend or is this person a foe? And fairness, perceiving that there's an impartial and just exchange between people. So everybody getting kind of the same deal. But how do we reduce our reaction to stress? My main belief in the course that I teach is that when the adults change, then everything changes. And so I'm going to offer a few solutions to help you find some balance with your kids and stress. The first I'll share is about the SCARF solutions. The second is about strength-based parenting. And the third is about self-determination and ego depletion. So back to SCARF. Remember, the SCARF triggers the amygdala hijack. SCARF solutions slow that stress response, and they enable the rational brain to work. They also enable open communication between each other, taking away intention and understanding how we're relating to one another. So for children everywhere, we should provide feedback that is positive only. They don't need criticism of any kind. They're already criticizing themselves enough. We have to make really sure that when we're giving them feedback that it's positive, even if it needs improvement. But this I'll cover in a minute. We would prefer that the feedback be strengths-based praise, and we'll talk about that in a minute. Certainty is setting clear expectations, having clear set goals, and having realistic project schedules. But that has to be paired with autonomy so that they have a choice in what those expectations are, what those goals might be, and understanding how they can provide the parameters for how they'll get that project completed. For autonomy, delegation, helping them self-regulate, helping them feel empowered with how they feel about what they're trying to accomplish. It's really important that they have a say in what they're trying to do, because if they don't have a say and it's just expected of them, it can be kind of a drag. But for teenagers, there are a lot of ways, especially if we're talking about strengths, to be able to help them self-regulate and turn their sails in the direction that they want to go. Relatedness. We want to foster opportunities for socialization. I'm not just talking about letting them get together with their friends. I'm talking about kids being able to hang out with their parents. So doing things that are fun, playing games together, going out and exercising together, making time to socialize and get to know who your child actually is really important. And then a sense of fairness in the home. So you set boundaries as a parent. Make sure your child knows how to set boundaries with you as well. It's really important for them to feel that there's a fair exchange of information and communication within your household. Okay, I want to talk about strengths-based praise a little bit. There's so much that I could talk about here because it's kind of a big part of what I teach, but I want to be able to fit it in with everything else. So the way that we praise our kids matters. It may sound wonderful to say to them, you got an A, you are so smart. Sounds positive, right? You're encouraging them. You're making them feel good. Of course, we want them to be proud of themselves. The problem with this type of praise is that it's not repeatable. So when we're praising our children, we want to make sure that it's concrete, that we are giving strengths language within how they're praising, so that when they go to repeat a behavior that was successful, they have the actual tools to be able to do so. So the new praise would be, you got an A+, your hard work paid off. What were the study habits that worked? What was working for you? And actually having them answer the question helps them generate what they were doing to recreate that behavior in the future. This all came from Lee Waters' book, The Strength Switch. I strongly, strongly recommend reading this book. But if you don't want to read the book, that's okay. You can find strengths all different places. You can find the VIA character strengths. That is the language of positive psychology. It's a free survey that you can look up, discuss with your kids, discuss with your family, with your teammates at work, whatever it might be. Strengths-based language is a game changer for any organization. You can also find strengths at the Gallup or the Clifton Strengths, R2 Strengths Profiler, and Character Lab Strengths as well. But Lee Waters has a formula. So if you don't want to go look that up, that's okay. You can find these strengths right in your kid's behavior. So the first would be performance. So they're really good at something. You notice that they're good at what they're doing. They have energy while they're doing it. They feel good and they like to do it. It makes them feel energized. And then it has a high use. So they're choosing over and over again to use this strength in every day. So Lee Waters, The Strength Switch, really, really amazing stuff. I want to stress 3 of the most important words that you can use with your teenager, and it's, are you willing? If you're going to teach your child some new technique, make sure you ask first, are you willing to learn a new technique? This is one that I like to offer. It's called the Pomodoro technique. So if they're overwhelmed, they have so much work to do, this technique actually helps to get things done without feeling stressed about it. So you decide what task you want to get complete. You set your timer for 25 minutes, you get to work. You work on that chosen task until that timer rings. Then you take a short 5-minute break. Do whatever it is you want to do. Then go back, repeat that 4 times until the tasks are completed. And then after those repeated 4 times, you take a longer break for 15 to 30 minutes. This actually optimizes our energy to be able to help kids to, because their attention span is not that great. Actually, adults' attention span isn't even that great. So this helps to chunk things in and get things done in a more productive and kind of fun way. I want to talk a little bit about self-regulation and ego depletion. Self-regulation is actually a strength on the VIA Character Strength Survey, but sorry, America, it is the lowest for Americans. I don't know why, we just have trouble self-regulating. There are outliers, don't get me wrong, but most Americans actually find self-regulation lower on the strength inventory. Self-regulation is control over our emotions, over our behaviors, over our desires to obtain reward or to avoid punishment. What we find is that when we are seeking reward, it motivates us more than just avoiding punishment. It is the capacity for changing the self. And the benefits of self-regulation are right there. You're going to have a higher GPA. You're going to have better psychological adjustment, less psychopathology, less binge eating, less alcohol abuse, better relationships, better interpersonal skills, more secure attachments, and optimal emotional responses to stressors. So self-regulation is like a muscle. The more you use it, the stronger it gets. So if I said to you, don't think of a white bear, what do you think of? You immediately think of a white bear. So if we speak to our kids in something like you're not doing what you're supposed to do, you're not doing what you're supposed to do, you're not doing what they're going to see the white bear. They can only see what we're giving our brains the direction to think about. So the more we focus on self-regulation as a strength, the stronger it will get. And self-determination theory says that people will become self-determined when 3 basic needs are met. Competence, so they understand what they're doing. Connection, they understand their opportunity to be connected to it, and their choice. So competence, connection, and autonomy are fulfilled, and then self-determination follows. And the really interesting thing about human motivation is that motivation actually starts after you start. So if you have a kid that's like, I don't want to do it, and they're just feeling overwhelmed and just having trouble starting, simply say, okay, I hear you. I understand this is tough and it's hard work. I totally get it. Let's just start for 15 minutes. And as soon as that 15 minutes starts, usually that motivation follows. But then we have this thing called ego depletion. We all have this beautiful pool of energy when we wake up, when we begin our day, but the pool has a hole in it. And as we get depleted as the day goes on. And it's not that we have nasty impulses, it's just that our usual restraints are weakened. This is from Roy Baumeister, the psychologist studying ego depletion. So we know that there are sources of depletion, but there are also sources of repletion. So being able to find balance means that, yes, we know stress is there. We know that pain is present. We understand that it takes so much energy to make decisions and take initiatives and multitask and restrain our impulses all day long. We may have sleep deprivation. We may have a weak immune system. There could be PMS involved. We could have low blood sugar. There's so many things that steal our energy throughout our day. But in order to concentrate on refilling that pool and understanding that our ego needs to be replenished throughout the day helps to create that balance in how we approach our day. So a reasonable amount of exercise, not excessive exercise, a well-balanced diet, clearly stated goals, again with autonomy, relaxation, meditation, laughter, savoring natural pleasures like spending some time outside, having social support, and getting enough sleep. So I want to just summarize everything that because I've thrown a lot at you in a really short amount of time. Adolescent brains are more prone to the amygdala hijack. They are more prone to stress because of the way that they're at the rate that their emotional brain is developing. An anxiety toolkit is helpful to everyone. Understanding how to calm your own body and your own mind when things are calm helps you to understand how to do it when things aren't so calm. SCARF theory can help you better understand your social triggers. It can start a communication with you and your child, or you and your coworkers, or you and your whoever, to understand like what might be triggering an anger response or an amygdala response in them. Strength-based language shifts how we respond to each other. When you see what is good about someone and you call it out for someone, it makes them want to do it more, and especially if it's a naturally occurring strength in them. Self-regulation is a muscle. It can be built, but it takes work. Ego depletion is also a muscle. It takes work, but it's worth it in the end to give us more energy throughout our day. And the Pomodoro technique, set a timer for 25 minutes for any task, take a 5-minute break, repeat, 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 and then take another break. It's a really good technique to get things done and be productive. And the 3 important words for any teenager: are you willing? This all comes from a 16-module system that usually takes about 2 hours each. So if anybody's interested in learning more about positive psychology and the language of resilience, I do teach a course, and feel free to reach out to me asking any information or any helpful hints, because I'm really happy to share the information.